Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start, may I take this time to remind everyone of our house rules and reminders for today's event. To all participants, be respectful and observe the quorum throughout the session. Um, During the Q&A, please use the Q&A chat box function and kindly type your questions briefly and clearly. Participants are requested to virtually remain in the webinar until the end. And we would also like to remind you that the webinar will be recorded and uploaded by the organizers. So participants will not be allowed to record. If you have any concerns, inquiries, you may directly Q&A them to us through the Q&A function. All right, so now we can actually start our event. Hello, magandang hapon and buongiorno to all participants from the Philippines, from Italy, and hopefully from the rest of the world. I am Matteo Piesentini, and I will be your host and moderator for today's program. And of course, it's a pleasure to be with all of you here today. So today's webinar is brought to you by Fax Asia and Geopolitica.info. Fax Asia is a Manila-based nonprofit think tank, and we provide host expert events and analysis on foreign and public policies to be utilized by stakeholders and policymakers. Geopolitica is a leading Italian think tank and publication focused on international relations and strategic studies. Early this year, these two think tanks signed a joint memorandum to produce joint publications, expert dialogues, and public events on issues such as great power rivalry, regional security, maritime affairs, and the impact of emerging technology on foreign security policy, and also, I would add, middle power engagements and engagement with countries from different sides of the world. So it's a testimony of also these developments. And this brings us to today's discussion. We will examine the prospects for this Philippines-Italy partnership, focusing, of course, on the likelihood of increased operational coordination and whether this relationship serves as a blueprint for European engagement in the Indo-Pacific, how it sustains European engagement, and what actually brings Italy here, and what can the Philippines actually gain from this partnership, and likewise, what can Italy gain from this partnership. So furthermore, we will assess also this in light of the development of the US-Iran conflict and how this impacts regional security framework and maritime stability. What was done before, how will it develop after this big inflection point? But we have three panelists joining us today for this discussion. And of course, we look forward to hearing their insights on Italy and Philippines perspectives. So let me start and begin the program with a brief context setting. And then, of course, after this, our presenters will make their presentations, and then please prepare your questions for the last moment of this webinar, which will be the Q&A sessions that will follow the contributions from each speaker. So the context, right? So the
Matteo, sorry. I don't hear anything.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. As I was mentioning, this webinar builds and is brought to you in the context of growing Italy-Philippines relations, as testified by the renewal and, I would say, update of the defense agreement between Manila and Rome. And it represents actually a milestone in Philippines' effort to diversify security partners, and of course, Italy increased engagement in the Indo-Pacific, and Italy is growing its engagement with Indo-Pacific countries, and Italy can provide support also for the Philippines' comprehensive archipelagic defense concept and other efforts in military modernization. And of course, this also matches what are Italy's strategic interest in first protecting the what we call expanded Mediterranean, and also reflects debates currently undergoing in Rome whether to stretch up to the edges of the Indo-Pacific in their engagement. Of course, this cooperation seeks to institutionalize the provision of Western maritime assets to the benefit of the Philippines and may act as a further deterrent against threats. And of course, Italy positions Italy also as a main actor in a broader context of European engagement with the Indo-Pacific. However, with the US-Iran crisis triggering national energy emergencies, and of course exposing vulnerabilities by both sides in terms of fragility of trade routes, supply chains, energy provision. This partnership, and perhaps this is the auspice, right, may and has to evolve from a sectoral collaboration on defense into probably something that caters to different geopolitical and geoeconomic necessities for ensuring resilience from both sides, and of course sustaining at the same time freedom of navigation. So these are the coordinates for today's debate, and of course now once we've established what are the strategic stakes that we're talking about, now let's dive straight into the heart of today's discussion. And joining us as first speaker to provide the first perspective on this evolving partnership is Dr. Stefano Pelaggi. Dr. Stefano Pelaggi is a research fellow in the Department of History, Anthropology, Religions, Art History, and Performing Art at Sapienza University of Rome, where he contributed to the establishment of the Taiwan Studies Center within the Centro Studi CEMAS Study Center, CEMAS. His academic background combines a degree in sociology and a PhD in history, and his work primarily explores the history of international relations in the Asia Pacific, with particular attention to Taiwan's foreign policy, identity formation, and Italy's diplomatic engagement with Southeast Asia and the Indo-Pacific. In addition to his academic role, Dr. Pelaggi also serves as the head of institutional relations for Geopolitica, where he also edits the Taiwan Spotlight column. And of course, he's affiliated as research fellow with the Taiwan Center for International Strategic Studies. Dr. Pelaggi, you have the floor, and you may start your first contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matteo, and thank to the organizer for having me here today. It's a big pleasure from our side, from Centro Studi Geopolitica.info, to participate in this event and to celebrate in this way the memorandum with FACT Asia. We are really excited to start this cooperation. I would like to extend my thanks to my fellow panelists, Lorenzo Termine and Vincent Calparada, and of course, Matteo Piasentini. I follow their work with great interest, and it's a genuine pleasure to share this panel with you today. Let me step back a bit. I just would like to describe the event which took place a few days ago. We had the launch of our edited volume. Matteo Piasentini was one of the author, and Lorenzo Termine was one of the contributors. The book titled The Economic Impact of the South China Sea Disputes has been presented Monday, 20 April, in the Italian Senate under the auspice of Senator Giulio Terzi di Sant'Agata, with the participation of His Excellency Ambassador Nathan Imperial, the ambassador of the Republic of Philippines to Italy. And there was the presence, we had the pleasure to have the presence of Vice Director for Asia and Oceania of the Ministry of Italian of Foreign Affairs, Valentina Muyasan. So taken together, this presentation, this webinar, a very similar presentation that we had A few weeks ago in Manila, presentation of the same book, they signal a genuine and a growing interest on both Italian and the Philippine side on the bilateral relationship. And it's a moment of visibility that, frankly, would have been hard to imagine a few years ago. And I would like to describe today how Italy is looking towards the Asia Pacific region, how Italy is looking to the Philippines, and why this has changed significantly in the last 5 or 6 years. And to try to answer this question, it is really important to stress how Italy is dealing with this concept, with this bubble of the Indo-Pacific, and what is distinctive about the Italian approach. I do think, and I think that most of the panelists at this table agree on this, that this has been a very important development in Italian foreign policy in the last years. It is a very significant conceptual shift, which has transformed the way we do look into this region. And several Italian analysts have put it, it's precisely how to turn political signaling into a coherent strategic role. Let's make it clear, we all know that Indo-Pacific is not a place, is not a geographic region, is not a determined and well-defined concept. Is more like a framework, is an analytical point, is an operational concept. And it is really interesting to see how the Italian foreign policy is developing, struggling, playing, and somehow adapting to this operational concept. Indo-Pacific is now part of our strategic document in foreign affairs, but not only. If we do look at the document produced by the Ministry of Culture, Ministry of the Economy, and so many other institutional government in Italy, they all mention the Indo-Pacific. And this is a very refreshing and big news. Parliamentary discussion has been held on the topic, and this is the media, the general media, have been really dwelling on the topic as well. So the main core of Italian foreign policy remain intact. No, the three pillars of our interest outside of our border, which are the Atlantic dimension, so the relationship with Washington, the European dimension, so the relationship not only with the geographical Europe, but even more with Brussels, and probably the most important, the Mediterranean, which held even a security concern about the same safety of our borders are still there. But somehow, along that, this new operational concept is emerging and reshaping how Italy maps its own interest. And I do think that the concept of Indo-Mediterranean, which has been emerging over the last years and has been repeatedly invoked by Prime Minister Meloni, mostly during her visit to Tokyo and Seoul, becomes analytically important. And it's not a parallel or a competing concept to the Indo-Pacific. I do think that it's more a declination of the same concept of Indo-Pacific. It's a declination of how to deal with the Pacific region, maintaining our historical center of gravity. The ambassador, the special envoy to IMEC, Francesco Maria Talò, recently captured very well this elegant formulation. Mediterranean is the sea in the middle, so the basin line between the world's two main maritime space, Atlantic and Indo-Pacific. So reading these as a continuum. So Suez, Red Sea, the Gulf, Indian Ocean, the South China Sea. Everything from a Mediterranean advantage point. Same maritime system, all the country along this maritime route somehow connecting. So a vast strategic space united by a fundamental importance to freedom of navigation, which is clearly something that is it crucial for the Philippines. And it's not only a rhetorical formula. Of course, there is a big part of storytelling, but there is a big infrastructural translation already in act. The India, Middle East, the Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC, launched in 2023 at the then G20, envision an integrated logics axis connecting India, the Gulf, the Eastern Mediterranean, and Europe. And Italian ports are the natural candidate for being the final dot in Europe. And I think that this is today the cornerstone of Italy's geo-economic engagement in the region, and could develop in being a central instrument of European de-risking away from over-dependency on China. So the main core elements of Italian foreign affairs remain the same, but there is this intuition that none of them are sufficient to describe the space in which Italian economic and strategic projection can be able to develop in the next 5, 10, or 20 years. Talking about interdependency and talking about the risking, we are now clearly experience a big problem. We were kind of coming out of the big shock coming from the Russian invasion of Ukraine and all the problem connected to the sanction which Europe choose to hold against Russia. Now the current crisis in the Strait of Hormuz and around Suez is something really which really matter for all European countries and from Rome. And those has been too big structural shock to the Italian energy system, and this sequence 22, 25, 26 transform the Indo-Mediterranean not only in a rhetorical innovation, but in an analytical necessity. So when Ministry of Defense Crosetto stressed in 2024 that for Italy, Indo-Pacific is as important as the Mediterranean, those words do really matter. They are not only rhetorical gesture. But let's try to have a look at what has been done in the region aside from rebuilding the words and the concept around it. The Global Combat Air Program with Japan and United Kingdom for sixth generation fighter jet, the elevation of relation with Tokyo to special strategic partnership, and the agreement between Fincantieri Indonesian for naval vessel, strategic partnership with Vietnam, South Korea, and India, and in just 8-9 months, 3 major bilateral business forum under the chairmanship of Foreign Ministry Tajani. So this is something which really stress a clear change. On institutional size, the appointment of Admiral Giuseppe Cavo Dragone as chair of NATO military committee is a signal that suggests the recognition of Italian capabilities and the responsibility in the region. On the operational side, development of Morosini and Marcegaglia, Vespucci, all mentioned by my previous panelists. Taken together, these elements reveal not only a dramatic shift, but will what analysts have described as a cautious recalibration. So a selective diversification of partner and instrument aimed at strengthening strategic autonomy. This is precisely the logic of broader European de-risking agent agenda declined in an Italian key. Two main elements that I would like to stress before wrapping up. One is the concept of overstretching, which is something which is always present when talking about being going in the Indo-Pacific for Italy. The other is the timidity of Italian foreign policy. Together with Japan and Germany, Italian foreign policy has somehow experienced this kind of shyness, no? Trying to get along with everybody. This is changing in Tokyo, this is changing in Berlin, and this cautious rebalancing in the Indo-Pacific can be read as something that connects to this. So a way to reshape our projection in the region without losing our core interest, without losing our main direction, which is connected with our 3 pillars of our foreign policy. And this is clearly a working in progress, but we do feel that this is moving on the right direction. It's moving beyond the declaration through a permanent presence. And I will stop here. I thank you very much.
Dr. Pelagi mentioned that all of these developments that we saw between Italy and the Philippines are part of a bigger picture of selective engagement with key partners for Italy in the Indo-Pacific. He actually mentioned certain other drivers than pure geostrategic military strategy. For example, friendshoring, the risking of supply chains and reliance of key partners in the region that share a certain degree of like-mindedness, and building and forging partnerships with new actors such as India. Well, Japan, for example, is a partner whose engagement has increased, building on pre-existing burgeoning relations. But also he warned us that as a middle-ranking power or middle power, Italy has its own vulnerabilities. And for example, he also highlights that it requires a certain degree of coordination and certain paradigm shift to keep the bar straight in this engagement with the Indo-Pacific, and that Italy moving forward should actually pursue and double down this strategy in coordination with partners and like-minded actors in the Indo-Pacific, and avoid shying away from this kind of engagement, even if sometimes it's challenging, as we're seeing in this current crisis. And to echo one motto that we had when Stefano was here, should we stay or should we go? I think we both agree that Italy should definitely stay. Thank you very much, Dr. Pelagi. Let's proceed by introducing Lorenzo. Dr. Lorenzo Termine. He is a researcher in international relations and international security, and he has served as president of Geopolitica, Info since 2023. He is currently also the president of Geopolitica. He is also currently a Max Weber Fellow at the Robert Schuman Center for Advanced Studies of the European University Institute. And he is also a contract professor at UNINT, University of International Studies of Rome, and Unitelma Sapienza, as well as non-resident senior fellow at the Europe Center of the Atlantic Council. In June 2025, he obtained also the National Scientific Qualification as an associate professor in political science. Yeah, so Lorenzo, you may have the floor, and then if Stefano catches up, I will jump on him after you finish your contribution. Thank you very much, and sorry for the sudden call, but it's troubleshooting.
Yeah, sure.
It's a live event, so this happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matteo. Thank you very much. And first of all, thank you, Fax Asia, for bringing this opportunity up for us and proposing and pitching this to Geopolitica.info. This is the first event of a series of joint initiatives that we may have in the next future, as based on our very recent MOU for collaboration. So let me really thank Fax Asia for setting everything up for this discussion. I will try to take upon something that Stefano has already mentioned, in order to try to dig deeper into what's going on between Italy and the Philippines more specifically. So of course I will refer to something that Stefano has said, mainly to Italy's general Indo-Pacific outlook, and then we can dig into the bilateral defense relationship. First of all, I think that we have to clear up two main general points, which are: where are Italy and the Philippines politically in general at the moment? Meaning, of course, that let me say a few words on Italy first. Italy is in a political moment, political institutional moment, where for the first time in a long history, it has a massive, solid executive stability, which is, of course, not very much of a tradition for Italy, which is used to short governments, a lot of replacement, a lot of turnovers at Palazzo Chigi, which is the government in Italy. So for the first time since 2022, there's been one single unitary government with very, very few, until the recent days, very few turnovers and replacement. So this is the first major novelty for Italy. On the other hand, with the Philippines, what we have witnessed so far is, of course, the change of administration brought up a new foreign policy outlook with a major reorientation regarding the People's Republic of China. Of course, I'm talking about the shift from the Duterte presidency to the Marcos Jr. presidency, which impressed a new outlook for Philippines foreign policy, which moved a lot away from China and started reconsidering some of its foreign policy positions. And this was very much appreciated in the G7 context, in Italy, and in NATO, and more generally in the Euro-Atlantic community. So I think that we can start from these two parallel developments that have taken place in the last 3 to 4 years. Because of course, these two things that cemented a new moment for Italy-Philippines relations, not just defense relationship, but talking about more general political relationship, because Italy started looking, and of course, I'm now taking the Italian side position. Italy started looking at the Philippines as more reliable, more responsible, more solid potential partner also in the defense domain. There was a very much appreciated general improvement of the Philippines perception in Italy, and the Philippines government perception in Italy after Bongbong Marcos took the government. And of course, this was embedded and took place while Italy was starting to look at the Indo-Pacific as a new, or at least almost new, operational theater, and more generally speaking, a geostrategic area. And on the other side, what has been, catching up the attention from Italy to the Philippines is the fact that Bongbong Marcos has started a portfolio diversification of foreign policy partners and defense partners for the Philippines. And I think this was a very clever move for the presidency, because of course the Marcos Jr. presidency started realizing that the Chinese clout in the Indo-Pacific basically froze ASEAN in a kind of stalemate when it came, of course, to the code of conduct, but in so many different policy areas. And when it came to actually try to build a community of like-minded countries, ASEAN was not so much into that process. So the Philippines could not rely too much on its historical organization, historical partners, and had to look beyond Southeast Asia to find new partners and new friends to work with. And of course, the United States was once again, 70, 80 years later, was again the strong consolidated partner. But on the other side, what we have witnessed so far in the last basically 10 years, almost 10 years, is that the United States have a lot of different priorities that have started taking different forms based on which administration you are facing. So of course, the containment of China is pretty much a bipartisan thing. So it's not changing across administrations. But on the other hand, what is really changing is the approach, the method, the way in which the U.S. Pursued its objective, meaning that we have shifted from a very unilateral based approach from the Trump administration, from the first Trump administration, to a more coalition building approach in the Biden administration, and then to a more unilateral, even I would say mercantilistic, beggar thy neighbor, and also very much America first in the Pacific policy for the Trump 2 administration. And these sudden shifts have shocked and have convinced partners and allies that it's no longer feasible to rely only on the United States for security and defense. It's also something that you should look out and search for new partners. And I think that this is something that the Philippines has realized very much in the last 3 to 4 years, with that sudden change from the Biden to Trump 2 administration. And they started looking out for new partners as well. So we have, just to recap a little bit on the Philippine side, I think that we had two major processes. So the beyond Southeast Asia, beyond the ASEAN process, and then beyond US process. Of course, it's not canceling, it's not removing, it's not taking away US or ASEAN, but it's diversifying the portfolio. And on the other hand, we have Italy with a solid government, executive stability, a new foreign policy outlook that started looking out for new partners. And also, it's also very much related, but I think that Stefano will say a few words again when he will have the floor back. But I think it's also very much related to how US recommendations on the Indo-Pacific were filtered in Italy as a recommendation to go more Indo-Pacific, to be more present in Indo-Pacific, specifically in the late Trump Biden administrations. I think that was pretty much how Italy read those recommendations. And of course, there was a general, I mean, elbow to elbow process that brought Italy and the Philippines together. So, for instance, the Italian G7 presidency in 2024 was pretty much a good moment because the Italian presidency of the G7 consolidated and pushed for a more interest in the Pacific position. So we all remember the fact that the G7 released a communique stating that the G7 supported the 2016 UNCLOS ruling on the South China Sea, and I think that was very much appreciated from the Philippine side, because of course much of the Philippines foreign policy in the last 10 years now. I'm so sorry that time flies, but 10 years now has been based on the UNCLOS ruling in 2016. And Italy has been echoing that position very much. And the Philippines was invited at the table in Fuji, so in the fall of 2024 at the G7 meeting, and that was a pretty good moment. I think that might be considered the moment when things started rolling, when things started moving forward. So all these things basically landed in the moment of February 2026 with the renewal of a very updated document for the defense agreement between Italy and the Philippines. But this is just one final result, and I'm now moving to the more defense part. This is just the result of a series of getting in touch, touch base process that has taken place in the last 3 years, and of course, very much was also brought upon by the Navy, by a series of initiatives of naval diplomacy that taken place starting in 2023 with the PPA Morosini port call in the Philippines, the visit by the PPA Morosini in the Philippines in 2023, and then of course in 2024 there was that massive Indo-Pacific deployment, both naval and Air Force aircraft deployment that brought the carrier strike Cavour group in the Indo-Pacific, and of course there was a port call as well by the Cavour carrier strike aircraft carrier, sorry, by the Cavour aircraft carrier in the Philippines as well, and these very much entangled and matched with a massive military modernization program in the Philippines, the Horizon Defense Modernization Program that the Bongbong Marcos presidency started pushing forward, and which has started pushing Philippines defense towards a more war fighting, more combat, more deterrence, more deterrence-based and defense-based force structure rather than just a counter-terrorism, counter-smuggling, counter-trafficking armed force structure. And of course, the two things match together because Italy had a big expertise when it comes to littoral defense, littoral deterrence, when it comes to brown waters, when it comes to also blue water capacity. Just we can think about what Italy is supplying the Indonesia at the same time with blue waters capability. We're talking about aircraft carrier there. And so moving into the actual capacity part, actual capacity building part, what we are witnessing today is that Italy is very much interested in Italian companies. And this is a very important thing when we talk about Italian defense companies. There is a pretty much overlapping of Italy and its defense companies because they are completely under the control and completely overlap with the state. So it's a massively state-run, public-run defense company sector. And Fincantieri with ThyssenKrupp are now working to supply the Philippines with near future submarines. And I just want to focus on that because I think that that's a very interesting fact, meaning that Italy is not supplying, is not providing the Philippines with outdated capacity. Italy is aiming to provide the Philippines with cutting edge, state of the art technology that will be used by Italy as well, meaning that the very same submarines that Fincantieri is trying to provide the Philippines with are the submarines that will be IOC in the next 3 years, next 4 years in Italy, and that will be used by Italy in the Mediterranean. So the near future submarines. And of course, this is the flagship initiative for a very general common interest that Italy and the Philippines on submarine warfare, on anti-submarine warfare. That's a pretty big thing going on right now. And at the same side, Leonardo is interested in supplying Eurofighters, so Typhoon, to the Philippines, which are, of course, great piece of aircraft. I'm not bragging too much. I'm not spending too many words on that, but it's a great piece of aircraft. And at the same time, there is a strong interest, and I think that was pretty much confirmed in the last few months for that big electromagnetic cyber warfare package offered by Italian company Elettronica, which will also be embedded into the near future submarines. So just to recap, and I'm moving to the conclusion, what we have witnessed in the last years is a general process of realignment between Italy and the Philippines that started with the fact that Italy has a strong government now. I mean, up until a few weeks ago, it was a very much solid government. Now, right now, it's still a solid government with some changes. I'm not boring you with domestic politics stuff in Italy, but it's a very solid government for Italy, at least for Italian history. At the same time, the change of position, the change of foreign policy outlook from the Duterte presidency to the Bongbong Marcos presidency has very much drawn the attention of European and Euro-Atlantic, NATO, G7 countries, and Italy was one of them. So these two things started matching together and found defense starting in 2023 as one ground of testing the new like-mindedness. And right now we're kind of taking the ripe fruits of this new like-minded alignment that started building up in 2023, 2024, 2025, and right now we have the defense agreement. So I think that would be my 2 cents on how that thing moved on in the last years. Thank you very much, and of course I look forward to the Q&A session.
All right, thank you very much, Lorenzo. So Lorenzo's speech touches upon several points of convergence. I can summarize them into domestic institutional stability in both in Italy that allows for foreign policy initiatives, a change in administration and foreign policy orientation by the current administration that has encountered a positive feedback in the West, and then of course the structural more related to US shifts in foreign policy, and I would say a certain degree of unpredictability that affects allies from both sides of one in the Atlantic, one in the Pacific, in the Philippines. So there's also this idea of diversifying to mitigate these vulnerabilities. And then, of course, we have a very important component substantiated by normative alignment when it comes to maritime stability, freedom of navigation, building on the arbitration. And of course, I would like to add also the fact that Italy is a maritime country as well, and we have a great deal of disputes with our borders, with maritime borders as well. So there's also like this kind of normative alignment on that, and the stake that we both share on UNCLOS. And finally, of course, the ability of Italy to be a maritime capabilities provider that, of course, is substantiated by these very important and consequential offers that also are signaling of a certain kind of commitment. Okay, thank you very much, Lorenzo. So now I would like to introduce our third speaker, Mr. Vincent Calparada. He's a Philippine-based defense analyst and lecturer at the School of Diplomacy and Governance at De La Salle College of San Benilde. He was previously a research assistant for the Future Issues and Technology Cluster at the Rajaratnam School of International Studies, RSIS, in Singapore, and he worked as an analyst at the Office of Naval Strategic Studies and Strategy Management of the Philippine Navy, as well as the Office of the Deputy Chief of Staff for Civil Military Operations, Armed Forces of the Philippines. Thank you very much, Mr. Parada. You have the floor, and you also have a slideshow. So please go ahead, and this will conclude our speaker's contribution. Thank you.
So thank you, Matteo. Pleasure as always. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to the Fax Asia team for the invite. As Dr. Termine and Dr. Palagi have said, Italy is fast becoming a strategic partner for the Philippines. And I'm happy to kind of share some thoughts on where I think that partnership is right now and where I think it's heading. I come from a defense background. I specialize in strategic studies, maritime security, generally things relating to the development and use of the military instrument. So against that backdrop, I'm hoping to answer three questions in my presentation. Why Italy, Philippines? What the state of Italian-Philippine defense relations is at the moment, and what they can do to improve them moving forward. When we talk about European engagement in the Indo-Pacific, we're really looking at four key countries. You have France and the UK, or the only real European countries with the capacity and capability to consistently project force in this side of the world. Germany, which is, of course, the largest economy in Europe, one of the largest in the world, and Russia, who is one of the world's top arms suppliers, especially among the Southeast Asian states. Compared to them, we can say that Italy is still a fairly new player to the Indo-Pacific. For example, it has yet to release a dedicated Indo-Pacific strategy of its own. So it's mainly been supporting the EU's 2021 Indo-Pacific strategy. But that doesn't mean that Italy considers Indo-Pacific as a kind of secondary theater. No? Quite the contrary, while its traditional focus has been the Mediterranean Sea, recent years have introduced a broader, much more ambitious concept commensurate with Italy's perceived middle power status. During the 2024 Rome MED dialogues, for example, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni went beyond kind of usual understanding of the Mediterranean in a limited context as a physical political boundary, a regional sea detached from kind of global challenges. Instead, she defined it as an area that wants to reach out to the world and become a key player in quote unquote major global interconnections. So it's no longer just a wider Mediterranean or even an Indo-Mediterranean, but a global Mediterranean. And why not? The Mediterranean represents a crucial link between East and West. 20% of the world's maritime traffic passes through its waters, despite only making up 1% of the Earth's total surface water area. Vital waterways such as the Suez Canal bridges the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean, by extension the broader Indo-Pacific. They're some of the busiest sea lanes in the world, and they pass through choke points like the Taiwan Strait, the Luzon Strait, the Strait of Malacca, The South China Sea alone sees 40% of the EU's foreign fleet. So what we are seeing here is a recognition of the interconnectedness of the world's maritime spaces and the importance of maintaining freedom of navigation over those spaces that serve as the lifeblood of global trade and industry. Italy, as a nation dependent on these vital sea lanes, wants to take on a more active role in their protection. It's really not unlike the Philippines' purpose in securing the West Philippine Sea. Beyond your obvious national interests, we've seen what happens when malign actors hold maritime spaces hostage. Disruptions to maritime traffic in the Red Sea, the Strait of Hormuz, they've all had major consequences to the global economy. Unilateral adventurism in the matter that China, Iran, or more recently the US have embarked upon all serve to undermine the rules-based order that kind of ensures our continued access to these global commerce. So that Italy and the Philippines are enhancing bilateral relations, especially in defense and security, uh, should really be no surprise to anyone. You know? And Rome has indeed been making overtures to Manila. So in 2023, for example, an Italian delegation headed by Ambassador Marco Clemente and the Deputy PM, uh, Canego de Camnago, met with Secretary Roberto Teodoro Jr. at the Department of National Defense. The Italian Navy's offshore patrol vessel, the Francesco Morosini, conducted a goodwill visit in Manila. 2024, we saw the frankly gorgeous training ship, the Amerigo Vespucci, open for public viewing. And I definitely regret not being able to visit there while it was still here. And in 2025, we saw Italy's flagship, the aircraft carrier Cavour, escorted by the frigate Antonio Marsiglia at Manila Bay. And in 2026, executives from Leonardo held talks with the DND, a clear sign that Italy was gaining ground in terms of being a potential arms supplier for the armed forces of the Philippines. And these efforts ultimately culminated in a new bilateral defense cooperation agreement between Italy and the Philippines. It was signed earlier this year, around February 2026, at the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference in Germany. So the provisions of this agreement focus specifically on procurement, defense co-production, logistics and technology collaboration. Future agreements might lead to the conduct of joint patrols and exercises in the future. But for now, I would say the clear focus for both Rome and Manila seems to be in integrating their defense industries in a kind of vendor customer relationship. The Italian defense industry is robust. Companies like Leonardo and Fincantieri are some of the top defense contractors in the world, well regarded for their air and naval platforms, respectively. In fact, the Philippines is already one of Leonardo's clients. The Philippine Navy currently operates multi-purpose naval helicopters, the AW-109, which has since been integrated into shipboard operations. Its U.S. warships, the Jose Rizal class and the Miguel Morval class frigates, the Ras Sulaiman class OPVs, despite being South Korean made, actually use Italian-made autocannons as their main guns. So as far as Manila is concerned, Italian military equipment was reliable, interoperable, and cheaper than many of their Western counterparts. And as the previous panelists have mentioned, these aren't second-class military equipment. This is cutting-edge military equipment, but offered at lower price points compared to, say, the likes of the U.S. And also incredibly important today as the AFP undergoes the shift from internal to external security with the launch of the comprehensive archipelagic defense concept, and as it embarks on the biggest phase of its modernization program, Rehorizon 3, which focuses specifically on the acquisition of your air and naval platforms. So there's a clear convergence between uh, what the AFP needs as a customer and what Italian defense companies could kind of offer as vendors. And we see that with some of the latest big ticket projects under Horizon 3, which you can see in this slide. For both the multi-role fighter project and the submarine acquisition project, Leonardo and Fincantieri have emerged as some of the front runners for the contracts. Leonardo is offering its Eurofighter Typhoons to the Philippine Air Force. Fincantieri is offering the U-212, the NFS, Near Future Submarine, to the Philippine Navy. And both kind of serve to address critical capability gaps in the country's defenses. There are only a handful, for example, of combat fighters in our arsenal. Securing your airspace is not just a question of the quality, but also the quantity of your aircraft. And Leonardo's offer is around 32 compared to Lockheed Martin's I think, 20 F-16s. So Leonardo's offer strikes a balance between both. Similarly, your submarines are valued mostly as asymmetric tools. Their utility comes from stealth. And Fincantieri's U-212 selling point is basically its AIS, its air independent propulsion system. It provides the U-212 with greater stealth and endurance, even for a conventional submarine now. So the question in this case, which people might be asking, is if Italy and the Philippines are so aligned, and why have defense relations not progressed as much as they have with other European counterparts, uh, even in terms of just simple bilateral defense relations, not even defense industrial collaboration. So to answer this, I've kind of taken the liberty of compiling the top 5 arms suppliers among the ASEAN states throughout 2000 to 2025. The data set is too large to include here, but these rankings are based on arms transfer data from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI. And I think Southeast Asia as a whole is a good case study because it's a pretty dynamic region in the midst of military modernization, making it a valuable market for Italian defense exports. We can see from the table here that Italy is not really a leading arms supplier for Southeast Asia. Top 5 arms suppliers for the region as a whole have traditionally been, Russia, United States, China, France, and Germany. Russian and Soviet-made military equipment is particularly prevalent among mainland Southeast Asian states, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Vietnam. China has large exports in countries like Laos, Cambodia, and Thailand, all 3 of which it enjoys close relations with. While top-of-the-line equipment from the US is usually directed towards Singapore, which is one of the few countries in Southeast Asia who could afford it, as well as Thailand and the Philippines, which are classified by Washington as non-NATO allies. But if we look at the data, we're also seeing the emergence of new suppliers, kind of eating away the share of these established suppliers of Southeast Asian defense market. Countries like France, Germany, and more recently South Korea have provided many of these developing states with a cheaper alternative to established arms suppliers that are nonetheless bang for your buck. For the Philippines case, South Korea has been a preferred supplier for the AFP, providing nearly all of its advanced naval platforms, uh, including the only fighter jets actually operated by the Philippine Air Force right now, the FA-50. U.S. arms transfers have mostly been hot transfers of secondhand military equipment or uh, joint development of military infrastructure, as is the case with the EDCA sites. Similarly, while Israel has been the main supplier of equipment for the Philippine Army, geopolitical developments have kind of forced the Philippines to seek less controversial alternatives. Indonesia and India are classified as emerging partners because they're still relatively new, and they haven't been awarded as much contracts compared to South Korea, the US, and Israel. So, namely, we're only talking about the Tarlac class landing platform docks for Indonesia and the BrahMos missile system for India. So, based on these trends, I would say that there is room for a new country like Italy to break through the Philippine defense market, especially one that can cater to the needs of both to its needs of both aerial and naval platforms. So there are really four main considerations when looking at a potential arms supplier. First, you need your new acquisitions to be compatible, interoperable with your legacy systems. Second, they need to be affordable enough not to break the bank, but also retain combat effectiveness. Third, you need to consider sustainment and logistics, which is, I'll talk about more later on. You want to establish supply chains, knowledge and tech transfers, geographically closer vendors, and viable after sales service and support. And fourth, you want something that is geopolitically or ideologically aligned to you. A country would want to buy equipment from a country if it or its allies have an adversarial relationship with that country. Italy fits most of these criteria, at least as far as the Philippines is concerned. But it does lack the sustained presence of its regional competitors. And that's the biggest hurdle it needs to cross right now as it kind of deepens relations with the Philippines. And to illustrate, let's kind of use uh, the submarine acquisition project I mentioned previously as an example. Fincantieri is offering up the U212 NFS. As we've said, Italian military equipment is not as widespread in Southeast Asia compared to its competitors. That means less established supply chains, fewer service centers, and so on. Uh, Outside of Italy, Fincantieri has 5 overseas service centers, 3 in the US, 1 in Bahrain, 1 in Japan, the closest to us, but access to which may be uncertain in the event of armed conflict or a geopolitical flare-up, particularly uh, as the maritime space you need to cross to reach Japan uh, is one that is could potentially be dominated by an adversarial state like China. In comparison, you have France's Naval Group, which is offering up its Scorpion class submarines. Not only does Naval Group have a larger presence in Southeast Asia in terms of being a regional arms supplier, Malaysia has operates the same submarines, and there have been numerous exchanges between Philippine and Malaysian personnel. Naval Group has also made considerable investment toward the Philippines itself. It even opened up a representative office here in Manila. France has sponsored the training of Philippine submarine personnel in preparation for the deal. So they really sunk in a lot of money toward winning that contract. And the issue of sustainment is, I would say, the biggest issue for potential arms suppliers in the Philippines, like Italy, is budgetary issues. Those can be solved with creative financing options. But without adequate supply networks, your infrastructure, et cetera, to support new acquisitions in the long term, the Philippines would inevitably resort to your established suppliers, especially more geographically proximate ones over new vendors. So South Korea, for example. Right now, there is only one naval, mind you, shipyard in the Philippines to support newer and more advanced platforms. And later on, construct them. And that's the Aguila shipyard in Subic, Zambales. It's formerly the Hanjin shipyard, but is now run by U.S. firm Cerberus Capital Management. And the goal in its acquisition was very much to revitalize Subic as a kind of warship manufacturing hub in Southeast Asia. So more than just selling equipment, Italy needs to make dedicated investments to set up shop in the Philippines long term. Because defense and defense industrial collaboration is not just about capabilities, it's about capacity too. And the Philippines is very much in need of capacity. So where we stand and how do we move forward? No? Well, there are obvious convergence points between Italy and the Philippines. Both are middle powers, want to take on a larger role in the international arena. Both have converging security and economic interests in the Indo-Pacific and kind of defer to the rules-based order in the pursuit and the defense of those interests. And there are very real opportunities for robust bilateral trade relations, especially in defense and security. Nevertheless, no, Uh, Italy continues to lag behind other European players as a regional arms supplier. It lacks robust logistical support networks in the region. Uh, it has deepened security engagements in Manila, but it is proven less capable in other sectors compared to other European states. And it has yet to release a dedicated Indo-Pacific strategy, which some might discount as unimportant, especially in light of the EU's 2021 Indo-Pacific strategy. But I think an Italian Indo-Pacific strategy is a very clear, precise, directed way of communicating to potential partners in the Indo-Pacific how exactly they want to engage with the region. So the Philippines, on the other hand, it suffers from the tyranny of distance. It's a quarter of a world away from Italy, and that's led to a preference for regional established partners like the US, like South Korea, when it comes to military acquisitions. It lacks adequate industrial base, so that means any newcomer to the defense market will have to invest heavily in the country if it wants to be an attractive vendor. Most important of all, there are very real institutional deficiencies, problems with procurement laws, corruption, well, that affect investor confidence in the Philippines. I mean, nobody wants a repeat of the 2016, the Duterte era anomalous frigate deal with regards to the Jose Rizal class frigates. Well, but the bottom line, I think, is that politically, ideologically, the foundation for a strong partnership is there. Italy's defense industry is compatible with the Philippines defense market and so on, but there are very tangible hurdles the two countries need to overcome if they want a long and productive relationship. I keep saying this, but at this point, it's no longer a question of capability, the will, the interest, it's there. It's now a question of capacity. So with that, thank you very much. That ends my presentation, and I look forward to answering any questions during the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Parada. So, thank you for your contribution. Actually, you delved deeper into the possibility of strengthening cooperation through military asset acquisitions, and thank you also for pointing out some areas where cooperation should actually develop, augment, and increase, because there are, of course, obvious and visible challenges. I know that some of these Italian companies and even Italian actors in general, institutional as well, are aware that in order to support the Philippines when it comes to these kind of transfers, the preferred avenue is through a comprehensive package that includes also servicing and logistics, exactly for the vulnerabilities that and challenges that you brilliantly pointed out. So thank you very much. Well, we gained some truly compelling perspective today, and from all of our speakers, and of course, in spite of challenges, both inherent to our respective countries, but also to what is happening now in the world. Of course, we actually want to pursue this because the security of the Mediterranean and the Indo-Pacific are actually no longer separate, but increasingly, I think, two sides of the same coin. And of course, these synergies will probably move beyond purely diplomatic phases. So, can I ask our speakers, and to turn their camera on? Because the organizers of this webinar requested for a quick photo opportunity with all of you. Lisa, can you please let us know when you have taken the screenshot?
All right. Everyone, please turn your cameras on.
Yeah, I would love to, but I think you have to allow me for.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. In 3, 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lisa, for this. Well, going back to our conversation and insights, I would leave the floor to some questions. We have about um, 15 minutes, so please be concise. And I will start fleshing out questions. So, yes, Stefano?
Mute. Okay. So no, I just wanted to very briefly add to the previous panelist, Dr. Parada, on why relations are not developed or why relation between Italy and the Philippines are not more visible, engaging, especially in bilateral relation. So I would just take this opportunity maybe to stress a bit on a part which the technical problem didn't allow me to do, which is clearly about the timidity, the shyness of Italian policy, and this concept of overstretching. So, speaking very clearly outside of the academic framework, I do think that Italy it's doing as much as it could, given the history of his foreign policy. The idea of an Italian presence in the Indo-Pacific, it's really hard, even to stress and to think. Okay, so what we do have here, it's basically, say it very simple, the best we can do, and it's a very important element, and most notable is a clear change from the previous approach of Rome in the region. So I think, yes, a lot more could have been done, but I think that what we see here now, it's important. A more muscular presence, but even a presence more based on the freedom of navigation operation, is just something which will represent a big jump, a big leap. And this change of direction, the entire storytelling, restructuring, the idea of our presence in the Indo-Pacific is something important. We cannot dilute our resources. Italian armed forces are heavily in very important theater in the Balkans, in the Mediterranean, in the Middle East, in the Horn of Africa, together with the NATO eastern flank, and this is non-negotiable from Rome. So it is unrealistic to think of something more, even from a political perspective. What has been done, it is a change from the past. It's not a super big leap, but it's a big shifting, and this is my personal perspective, and I will say that yes, a lot more can be done, but what has been done has been a good and realistic shift.
All right. Thank you very much, Stefano, for your further contribution that actually, I think, completes and strengthens what has been underscored today. So we have, so far, we have 3 questions. So I will proceed by clustering questions and then leave the floor to any one of you that may want to answer these questions. So the first regards a specific issue on the Philippine government. And so has the Italian and the Philippine governments resolved the issue of custody and jurisdiction of visiting military personnel who committed a crime in the host country? This became an issue on the Italian side in 2019 during the discussion for the renewal of the DCA, Defense Cooperation Agreement, between the Philippines and Italy. I can just say very briefly that the current DCA doesn't have any content regarding visiting troops. As Mr. Parada pointed out, it is about military cooperation without a specific status of visiting forces agreement provision or reciprocal access agreement, like the case of Australia and Japan. Yes, Lorenzo, I'll go listing the other questions. So the second question regards Ciao, buon pomeriggio. Is an anonymous attendee who greets us in Italian, which I'm flattered. So when it comes to defense industries and developing combat systems, the question is about, with the recent utilization of low-cost commercial drones for various combat applications and emerging technologies that enable drone capabilities, and of course also in terms of scalable manufacturing, are Italian defense industries and ecosystems shifting towards that capability development, or is it sticking to their current capabilities for its own military and defense export? So I think it's about possible avenues for cooperation in developing drone capabilities, given the importance that drones are acquiring for asymmetric warfare, and the interest that the Philippines has in acquiring drone technology, scalable and cheap to manufacture. And the third one from Quanton Wong, in light of the disruption of the Strait of Hormuz from the US-Iran war, how does the Philippine-Italy cooperation strengthen a rules-based maritime order from the Mediterranean to the South China Sea? So, okay, so first these three questions. I would also ask the speakers to be brief in their answer given time constraints, and we have other three questions so far. Thank you very much. Lorenzo, would you like to start?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Very good questions, and I also see that there are some others later on. I will just try to address the first one. So I will repeat what Mateus already said. Evidently, the issue was not so much of an obstacle for the DCA to be signed, meaning that eventually was deferred to a later moment, to a following moment to be addressed. So I know that this was an issue in 2019, and very generally has been always an issue for defense cooperation agreements between the Philippines and other countries, and more generally between host countries and visiting host country. But right now, apparently, it was not a big of an issue for the signing of the signature of the agreement. Second question. You picked me on this one because it pushed me to be a little bit more critical of Italian military and defense procurement more in general, meaning that Italy has a big military modernization program right now, but it's more oriented, is more directed towards big, expensive, multi-purpose combat system, such as the GCAP, of course, such as the Lynx infantry fighting vehicles, such as the DDX destroyer, such as, Giorgia Meloni, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has also wondered about a possible nuclear-powered aircraft carrier for the future of the Italian Navy. It is less right now sensitive to, anti-drone, anti-unmanned systems, defense, and which is a very a very bad thing. Meaning that, of course, the ongoing wars have proven how effective and cost-effective are those systems for war fighting. But my short answer would be, right now, Italy is not so much focused, in my opinion, or enough focused, in my opinion, in anti-drone, anti-unmanned, anti-UAV, UFV systems defense. In light of disruption in the yeah.
Lorenzo, no, just to I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think for the sake of efficiency, there are three questions. So the one of Wong, which talks about the Philippine-Italy cooperation related to how to strengthen the rules-based maritime order from the Mediterranean to the South China Sea. The following two are touching on similar questions, right? So of course, I'll leave the floor to you again, Lorenzo, but
okay, I will try to integrate. I will try to summarize a little bit of the last three ones. In my opinion, I wouldn't say that Italy is perfectly adherent to the FOIP. to the free and open Indo-Pacific, just for one major reason. I think that Italy might want to add another objective, which is more like of an inclusive free and open Indo-Pacific, is less confrontational towards China or towards People's Republic of China. And still, Italy has been pretty much adamant in recalling and echoing the need for freedom of navigation in the G7 communiques, and later on in a lot of following communiques. Let's think about the EU in the Pacific Ministerial Forum in November 2025, where they repeated these calls for freedom of navigation. So in terms of rules-based maritime order from the Mediterranean to the South China Sea, and more generally speaking, free and open in the Pacific, I think that what Italy can offer right now is a political rhetoric backing, and that's a very important one, both at the EU level, G7 level, and NATO level when NATO is called upon to do this, to do such thing. But on the other hand, I don't think that Italy will ever, in the foreseeable future, engage with actually deterrence activity towards the People's Republic of China. A one-on-one deterrence activity vis-a-vis the People's Republic of China will be more of a capacity building, supply of military equipment to nations in the Indo-Pacific. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Lorenzo. Since we still have 5 minutes of our time, I would like to leave also the floor to Mr. Parada, in case, of course, he wants to expand and add what was already discussed. Thank you. Please, Vincent.
So, in terms of the first question with the DCA, Mateo was right. There is no legal framework within the recent bilateral defense cooperation agreement, kind of laying out the policies for an exchange of personnel. In fact, that's only something that Italy has been kind of eyeing, I would say, when it comes to the Philippines. And in connection with the third question and Dr. Termina's remarks, I would say that Italy is best continuing on the path that it is on now. The Philippines, I would say, does not need an additional partner when it comes to joint patrols, exercises. Italy does not need to have a confrontational or adversarial relationship with Beijing. And the reason why Italy is such a good partner when it comes to arms transfers, defense industry collaboration, is because of the lack of a confrontational relationship with China. If you take a look at South Korea, which is the Philippines' top defense supplier right now, they have tensions with China. They have overlapping maritime claims, but they don't have the kind of relationship that Japan and China has with regards to how they engage with the Philippines and the South China Sea. And that's allowed them to kind of bypass any backlash from Beijing when it comes to these arms sales and transfers. The volume of it is pretty big. Indonesia, the Philippines, those are the top markets for South Korea right now in Southeast Asia. And you don't see China kind of calling out South Korea for selling ships, planes. Compare that with India. India got pulled back for selling the BrahMos missiles to the Philippines. Second question with regard to drones. Italy, I remember a presentation by Tecancheru, which kind of talks about unmanned underwater vehicles, subsea, undersea warfare, security. What I would say of the AFP right now, their priority is capability development when it comes to conventional platforms. Because they're really updating a lot of old systems. They're basically starting from scratch. Now, I'm an advocate for asymmetric capabilities, low-cost attritables, loitering munitions, drones, etc. But the challenge with that is that you can't just buy these capabilities. They're attrition-based, and you need to be able to produce them yourself to keep up with the rate of attrition because they're expendable. And that's not really something that the Philippines is ready for right now, unless you have a dedicated partnership with drone aligned, kind of drone expert countries like Ukraine. Italy has drone capabilities, yes, but as Dr. Termina said, uh, a lot of its defense industry, most of its defense industry is geared toward the production of your conventional platforms. And that aligns with the Philippines' needs for conventional platforms as it goes through the process of modernization, catches up with regional neighbors and so on. Yeah.
All right. So I think we used up all of our time at our disposal, and we are rather punctual. We finished everything within 1 minute before 5 o'clock. So, I think we can wrap it up. There are no other questions. So, once again, while our formal program ends here, the conversation, of course, surrounding the Pacific security and Manila Rome relationships and partnership, we're just beginning. This is just the beginning, and I really believe that this is just the beginning. And of course, it's also the beginning of, I hope, a fructuous collaboration between our two think tanks, Facts Asia and Geopolitica.info. We would like to thank you all, our participants. We have a very big number of participants, which we're very happy about for this starting webinar. And of course, thank you for joining again. And we look forward to seeing you in our future interactions, activities, webinars. And of course, if you have any questions, concerns, you can reach us via Fax Asia through social media accounts, and of course, social media accounts of Geopolitica.info, which are, you search up Geopolitica as well in the listed social media platforms you see there. And of course, if we also our profiles, our speakers profile, we will try our best to keep you posted on future events. And once again, this is Matteo. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat. Grazie mille, and see you next time. Bye.
Salamat. Bye bye.